And we're back, and it's COMP397, Web Game Programming for the Winter 2016 session. And it's week 1, lesson 1, part 2. Part 1, we did Visual Studio with TypeScript. And I did it because most of you have PC who had trouble with Git. I think we've corrected the Git problem for the most part now. For the most part, I think everyone has access to Git, right? Which is something that you want to have in order for you to use Visual Studio Code. It's, like I said before, it's a dependency. All right, so I've got VS Code here, and I want to bring it up for a second. Here we go. Here's VS Code. So VS Code is like a lightweight version of Visual Studio, but it's really a code editor. It's not an IDE. Visual Studio is an integrated development environment. VS Code, editor, right? It's like Brackets. It's like Sublime. It's closer to that, as opposed, or even Atom. It's not an IDE. And the reason why is because primarily what it's for is for coding. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't do the beautiful, happy things that Visual Studio does, okay? And it's a little bit more raw, but it's cross-platform, which is really cool. So if you're a Mac user, you're gonna love Visual Studio Code because you can do TypeScript without Visual Studio, right? Especially if you're a Linux user or someone else like that. All right, let's check this out. How do I kick this off? So let's do a couple things. Let's make a new empty folder here on the desktop. So I'm gonna right-click, I'm gonna go new folder, and we're gonna call this folder the same name as what we kind of had before, right? I'm just gonna rename this thing COMP397, JS boilerplate. And it's gonna be for the Winter 2016 session, and we'll add in, why not, VS Code at the end, right? So we know it's the VS Code version, right? As opposed to the one that's Visual Studio. Who cares? Okay, I'm going to take this folder when I have Visual Studio open, and you have 2 panes in Visual Studio Code. We're just going to call it Code from now on, or VS Code. All right. There's some buttons here. There's the project side, and then there's this pane over here, which is the editor pane. I'm going to take this and drop it into the editor pane, like this. Cool. Now I have my empty folder here for VS Code, right? And as you can see, I have my working files and my project. Notice when I hover over my project name, I get a couple of icons. One of them is new file. The other one is new folder. Let's add the folder structure we talked about. What are the 2 folders you need? You guys are golden. I like that thing, right? Because if you say content and scripts, you're going to get good on your test next week, right? I know you're laughing at me, but some people won't, right? So we're going to add 2 folders. So first one is content. Add that in, and you can just hit the button to do that. Or if you click away, I can right-click somewhere in here and do the same thing, new folder and scripts. As long as you click away. If you were to click in here or have this highlighted, it would go inside the folder. You don't want that. But if you do, like let's say you did something like this by accident, right? You can always drag it out like this. Okay, so don't worry about it if it happens. Okay, so content and scripts. On my content, we want to put in a new file, which we want to call game.css. When it opens up, we want to do the same code, which is going to be custom styles. Same thing we did last time, exactly the same. Here we go. And in my scripts, I want to have a new folder, which I'm going to call core. I'm going to have another folder, new folder, that we're going to call, not in core, another folder in scripts that we're going to call objects for now, because we're going to do the objects folder as well, because that's where all of our nice objects are going to go, right? And we're also going to put another folder in scripts, which we didn't do on the other side, called lib, because that's where our libraries are going to live, right? Here in VS Code. So we've got our folder structure in my core folder. So I'm going to click my core folder. I'm going to right-click and go new file, and we're going to call that game.ts we did before. Right, and in here, I'm going to do console.log game started. Just like we did before. Everything is the same. Except for transpiling isn't going to work. And this is where I need you to have Node installed, and we're going to go through all that in a second, and all that other stuff to make it work. Okay, so we got scripts, we've got content. We need our index.html now, right? So I'm going to go right-click and new file, or you can do that, or you can go up here and click this button here. Again, there's 2 ways of doing it. And when we put new file index.html, let's hand bomb it. because I'm a hand bombing kind of guy. So I'm going to say doc type, right? HTML, and we need an HTML. You know, let's actually I'm going to use Emmet to freak you guys all out because I know that Selena likes it when I do that. So HTML. Inside my HTML, I have two tags. I have a head tag. Inside my head tag, I have a title tag. Right, and next to my head tag, I have a body tag. Right, and if I press tab, I get this. Right, Emmet. Right, it's the quick and fast way to do typing, so you can freak out your friends and family. I'm joking. In HTML, you can go lang is equal to English. We're going to hand bomb this just to make. And you have a couple meta tags that we had before, right? Under our head, we have the first meta tag, which is character set is equal to UTF-8. And the second meta tag, if you remember, is name is equal to viewport. Don't worry, I'll slow down in a second, I swear. Content, I'm lying, is equal to width is equal to device dash width, a comma, a dash scale is equal to 1. Yes. Oh man. It's HTML greater than sign. You need to make me do this by hand, my head, eh? Right? Open bracket, so open parentheses, or in parentheses, I want you to put the following. Head, right? Type head, greater than sign, title, close parentheses, right? Plus, open parentheses, body, close parentheses, tab.
Why don't you write it down?
Come on. It's like this. Like this, watch, it's like this. It's HTML, right? And then it's greater than sign, open bracket, head, right? Title, plus body. That way too. That's called Emmet. It's a shortcut that we use to program on the web. If you don't know Emmet and you're a web developer, something's not right. It means you haven't studied enough. Study. Again? Jesus Christ. All right, it's, now remember we have the doc type already. We had to have the doc type there, right? So, and you can make this more complex if you want to, by the way. HTML, greater than. Greater than means it contains, the HTML tag contains, that's what I'm saying, right? What does it contain? In parentheses, well, it contains a head tag, right? That also contains a title tag, right? And then what's next to the head tag, I have a body tag. That's what this means. And I press tab. I'm waiting for you guys to catch up. Can I go? Tab, right? Okay, that's what it would be. That's how I got this. Okay, so you've got this piece, and I want to put the title in here, so it's the same thing. So COMP397, create.js, boilerplate, and then winter 2016. Remember, this is all being recorded, right? So worst case, if you can't get it, you can always watch the video, right? And skim and really, rush through. If you fast forward, you'll be cool. Okay, cool. I just put that in there as a body tag. I need to put in some comments. Remember, like this. This is a CSS section. We did that last time. And down here below, before the body tag, let me get rid of that extra HTML in a second. Below the body tag, or above the body tag, I mean, I'm putting in my JavaScript. Why am I putting my JavaScript above my body tag? Anybody? This is JavaScript 101. Why am I doing it?
So that it's not affect the CSS time.
No, but I like your thinking.
It's not gonna
Load the content. There you go. It's non-blocking. That's what the answer is. It's non-blocking. Because if it fails, anything else, that the content won't load, right? So I always put my JavaScript at the bottom, okay? Before my body tag. In the past, we put it inside the head. Not anymore. Please don't do that. That's old school. That's 1990s. Right now, we don't do that. Okay, that's not true. That's like 1995, right? Here we go. 1990s didn't have JavaScript, wasn't working so good. Okay, and I want to do the link. I want to link up to my content, so I got to hand bomb this. There's no drag and drop here. If I can't do this, right? I can't do that. I can't drag and drop like I did in Visual Studio, right? So let's do that. Let's hand bomb it. So link, right? If I do link, I'm going to go to content. That's my path / game.css. That's what my the thing is there. Okay, and for my JavaScript, I got to do the same thing. It's in my scripts, in my core, in my game.ts, right? So let's do that. So I'll go into, instead of link, it's going to be script. And it's going to be source is equal to. Notice how it's all manual. Scripts. This is for the silver, right? Like I told you, core. Game.js. Has to be JS, not TS, because TS is not recognized. Hint, hint. If I ask that question on the test, it's going to be, you need to make it JS because TS isn't recognized. It's only JavaScript that's recognized. TS is just the file we're using to do TypeScript. Okay. So this is our core game.js file. All right. Okay. So up until now, we're kind of the same, right? Where it becomes more challenging is when we want to do TypeScript in VS Code. And this is where I need to do all kinds of prep on the outside of VS Code. The great thing about VS Code is I can right-click in this pane right here, and instead of swimming around to find my path to where my folder is, I can just go open reveal in Finder or reveal in Explorer, and then here's my Explorer, right? So here's my file. I don't have to search around to find it. This is where it is, right? Same thing with my terminal or my command prompt. I can right-click here on the bottom, and I can open in terminal, right? Now, for me, I'm using something called iTerm. And if you're a Mac user and you don't have iTerm, get it. It's better than the regular terminal because it gives you a tab control and a bunch of other stuff. All right, cool. So this is my path. Look at my long, ugly path to my place because I got a huge folder, and I did it on purpose, right, to show you how big it is. Right? It's bad. So that's fine. So I've got my long path, and I'm here. I need to do a couple things. Do you have, first of all, the question is, do you have Node installed? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question. If you have Node installed, you're good. If you don't have Node installed, go get Node. If you're a Mac user, I told you have to go get it through Homebrew. So let's get Node. Where do you get that again? Nodejs.org. Download 5.41 stable, please. And it has to work on the command line. So guess what you're going to have to do with your environment variables? Same thing, right? Because if it doesn't work on the command line, then you won't be able to do the stuff I want you to do. So please get Node. All right. And I'll let you get that for a second. Download it and install. Make sure you install it properly. When you get Node, you should see something like this. You should be able to do npm, that's the command, npm, and then space, and then -- version. And you should have something like 3.x, whatever 3.x is going to be. I'll wait for you guys to do that. Let me know when you have it. Does everyone have Node working? Or do you have the same problem, like npm not a recognized command? You're working? Okay, you're working, good. No? Unrecognized command? Environment variables, fix them. Go back, we already did this exercise with Git. That's why I did it with you guys, right? No, it's gonna be in, it's either gonna be in program files x86 or program files by itself, depending on how you installed it, right? So check both, and it should be called Node.js. Swim in there, and grab that path in the bar. Right click, select your path as text, copy it, and put it inside your path variable, like we did before. Otherwise, you can't do npm. No npm, no go. Just like the old Chevy Nova. You ever hear the story of the Chevy Nova? I'm going to tell you a story now, right? No? Chevy Nova was one of the most popular lines of cars back in the 70s, right? It was bad. It was like everyone wanted a Chevy Nova, and it was doing very well in the States. This is a story that I heard way back in the day. People who are watching the video are going to be like sick of me saying this stuff, but what the hell? Anyways, so everything sold well, but when they went to like South America, right, and to those Latino or Hispanic areas, right, it didn't do so well. Chevy Nova. Why wouldn't it do so well? Anybody? Because the name is Nova. What does Nova stand for? If you're Hispanic, you might know, right? Nova, no go, right? So it was the Chevy no go, right? And that's why it didn't sell, right? So if you can't if you can't do it, then it's, you know what? It's Nova, buddy. No npm, Nova, no go. Everyone's got npm ready yet? Anybody has it? Everyone has? You got it going? npm on the command line? Anyone not have it on the command line yet? If you don't have it on the command line, you got to get this going. Okay, cool. I'm going to continue. So, no, I shouldn't continue. I need to install TypeScript, and without TypeScript, I can't do the next piece. And in order for us to get TypeScript, I'm going to go to typescriptlanga.org. Notice when I try and install it, it says, if I want to install TypeScript, right, I need to do an npm I or install -G for global, because npm is the node package manager, right? That's what it is. It grabs a whole module and installs it in your path, right? So that's why you need npm and node, right? I stands for install. So npm install -G for global, that's what it stands for. And then TypeScript, that's what you want to download, right? So you want to do this on the path. So let's do that. So npm, I'll just clear that up. So npm install TypeScript is what you want to type here, -G. And then press enter. If I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. But basically what you're going to do is it's going to go out to the web, grab TypeScript, and install it on your system. Okay, here's the major block for Windows users. If you've got Visual Studio 2013 and 2015, and you get an older version of TypeScript, you won't have this. I want you to test your TypeScript installation by doing this. TSC space -V. And you should get, if you get the latest version of TypeScript, it should be 1.7.5. If on the command line you got 1.0.3.0, right, you got a real issue, because Visual Studio has blocked you. It's got an old version of TypeScript, and you have to Google, how do I get the latest version of TypeScript, you know, on the command line with Visual Studio. Even if you install it on Visual Studio and you follow the installation steps up here, right? If you click download, and if you click, I don't know, for Visual Studio 2013, and it takes you here to download TypeScript, it still will be wrong. It won't work, right? You have to fix it, and there's a Stack Overflow on how to do that. So again, it would be like something like this: TypeScript version wrong on command line, or something like that, right? And if you look at it, it says, where can I find TypeScript version installed? TSC.exe should point to the latest TSC after installing out-of-band stuff. And it says, hey, yeah, you have a problem. And if you look through this, there is a fix for this. Bad path when installing TypeScript 1.4. Latest version of TypeScript not showing up. You know, it could be one of those. If you look it up on Google, it'll show it. It's the latest version. Not showing up in command prompt. There we go. And it says TSC version shows 1.53 or something else after upgrade to 1.6. What did I do wrong? And it'll tell you what to do. There's some kind of thing where you have to change the path of VS Code, or take it out of your. You have to remove it from the environment variables, the one that you get from Visual Studio. Okay, but if everything goes well and you have it, you should get a version of 1.75. Who's got 1.030 or something else like that? You're in trouble, right? That's why I give two options: Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. Because if you have Visual Studio Code and you have a version of 1.030, you'll never run the transpiler on the command line, ever. It will never work for you, right? So you have to find your fix. So can somebody, I'm going to ask you to do it. Go online, Google it, and find the solution. How do I get the latest version of TypeScript when I have Visual Studio or something like that? Okay, and meanwhile, otherwise, I won't finish my VS Code install. Okay, so we're almost sitting at 6 o'clock. All right, so if you've got Visual Studio, VS Code and TypeScript installed properly, and you've got a version of 1.75, if that's what you're showing, you're good to go, right? Or even something else, 1.7 something, right? So let me bring back Visual Studio. In order for me to make TypeScript work in Visual Studio, I need another file. I'm going to right-click here and add a new file, and we're going to call it tsconfig, so TypeScript-config.json file. And my TypeScript-config.json file is a configuration file that tells TypeScript how to compile stuff, right? So I've got to use the open brace. I got to put an open brace into this file from the beginning. And I got to press Control Space. Control Space is going to give me some code hinting, and I'm going to go down to compiler options. In my compiler options, I'm going to choose target. This is for the silver, right? I'll show you when we'll get to the gold in a second, right? Here's for the silver, right? So options, I want to choose my module. My module as CommonJS. And I want to use my map, my source map. If I type source map, I want to turn that on and make it true. So that matches what you get with Visual Studio, because this is what Visual Studio has kind of for your compiler options. All right, so that's your JSON file that you need to have if you want to do TypeScript in VS Code. If you don't have this file, tsconfig.json, you'll never compile in VS Code. Right, you need to have this. There's one more file you need to have. I'll wait for you guys to copy this in. Have you fixed it yet, by the way? You found the fix. There's a fix. There's a fix. You're going to be good to keep searching. If you find it, everyone will be happy with you. I'll find it for you guys. Don't worry. I'll produce it next week. Okay, so how do you do this? What's the next step? So the next step to test if my game.ts can compile to game.js, right? I've got to hit a key sequence to transpile, and that is Command-Shift-B on the Mac or Control-Shift-B on Windows machines. So let's try that. So Command-Shift-B. It's going to come up with this thing that says Configure Task Runner. So let's get there. Command-Shift-B on the Mac, Control-Shift-B on Windows. Are we there? Click Configure Task Runner. If you configure Task Runner, you get all this gobbledygook and this output window. Let's close this output window. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of all these comments. You don't need them all. So I'm going to get rid of all this, because those are all useless comments. That's all they are. And all this stuff down here. Get rid of all this. And notice what it says here. It says TSC, and it assumes that TSC has been installed using npm install -g TypeScript. So that tells you right there you need to have this installed, and it has to be of a version. One thing it's not telling you is it has to be of a version that's greater than 1.5, or else it won't work. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of all this, and rid of all this, and really make my file a little slimmer until all you have is this. But this doesn't make any sense. My hello world.ts, there's no hello world.ts. So we're going to get rid of this piece in here. Now I'm ready. I'm going to save this file. So that's your tasks.json file that lives and was created when I did a Control-Shift-B or Command-Shift-B on Mac. Right? And lives in this .vscode file folder. Right? That's the file you need to have. So those are two files you need to do TypeScript in VS Code. I'm not going to ask you that question on the test this week, but I will ask you the question I asked for you on a test, because we're going to see this again and again, right? We're going to do this a couple times. Not the first and last time we're going to do TypeScript, right? Okay, so cool. We've got our version and everything else, and now I want to see if it transpiles and if it works properly, and if you have the right version of TypeScript installed in your system and it's available on the command prompt, right? Then you just have to do this: Command-Shift-B, and then you get this. It kind of swims around down here, the little thing that moves around, and then you have 3 files you'll get. You'll get a game.js and a game.js map. If you don't get those files, something's wrong. You've misconfigured something. So I can transpile, but instead of transpiling on save, I'm going to transpile on Command-Shift-B on Mac or Control-Shift every time. It's a step, an extra step we have to take, and we have to always remember to do it, because sometimes it's frustrating. You want to punch computers because they're like, I just made those changes, but they're not taking effect. And then you're like, did you transpile, dude? No. Oh. Right? Yeah. Latest version of TypeScript installed. So please get that going. Right? Now, again, there's some really awful fixes for getting that going. Like, for example, uninstalling Visual Studio. Some people suggest that on Google, right? Please try not to do that. That is like mayhem, right? Because you know how long it takes to install Visual Studio, right? Visual Studio is a pig. It's like, you know, gigs and gigs of information. You're going to uninstall that and put it back, right? And then it might still not work for you, right? Because inside your environment variables, you've got a line in there somewhere that says Microsoft Visual Studio TypeScript version 1 or something like that, somewhere in your environment variables. You got to take that out, right? All right, so now that we've got this working and I can transpile, let's try the same idea here for Visual Studio. If I add all that stuff in there and type it, I have it up on GitHub, right? So let's just get it from GitHub as a code snippet. So I'm going to go to GitHub, and I'm going to go to my latest thing on Centennial, right? And I'm going to go to Create.js boilerplate W2016, and I'm going to go into my files on in my scripts here. And I'm going to go into my core, and I'm going to grab my game.ts file. Here it is. And I'm going to grab all this code from GitHub, copy it. I'm going to go back into VS Code, right, and paste it. I got this reference, and I'm getting all this problem here. Like this reference path, it shouldn't work because I don't have anything like this in my reference path. And my game started has to be down there, right? It has to be down here. Like over here, it's already there. All right, so cool. So there's my code snippet, right? And let's put in those objects in the objects folder, right? So I need to add 2 files. So my first file is my person.ts file, and the second file is a student.ts file, right? So I've got those 2 files, and now I'm just going to go back up to GitHub and copy and paste in my objects. So there's my student.ts file. I'll grab that first and grab all this stuff. It's all there for you too, right? It's not just for me. I'm just saving myself the steps of typing it in because it's 601. There's this one. And I'm going to go up to and grab my person. My person.ts, and there's this one. And you know what? I got to include those, both those 2 things in the path on my index.html. And you know, instead of typing it in, I'm just going to grab it from my index.html up here because it's the identical file, right? So here's I'm going to go out to my index.html. And the only thing I need is these 2 paths right here. So I'm going to grab those 2 things, those 2 lines from my index.html and put them before this thing. Okay, okay, cool. Now I got to transpile. Remember to transpile. I got to put that up on the board, right? Remember to transpile. Command-Shift-B. Now, if you notice, if I did it properly in my objects, it's going to transpile the student and the person. So now, if you notice, here's my person TS. Here's my person JS. Right? Here's my student TS. Here's my student JS. Right? It does it for you. I generate it. It generates it because of tsconfig.json tells me the source map is true. Okay, cool. So I have everything here. It's complete now. My file is complete. The only thing I'm missing is my reference my reference path stuff because that's the one file I'm missing online. So I'm gonna go get it. So I'm here, and I'm gonna go into scripts, and I'm gonna go into core, and under my reference TS, I've got these two references. I'm gonna grab those two things, and I need to call it underscore reference, right? Underscore reference.ts. So I'm gonna do that back in VS Code, right? Oops. Back to VS Code. So I'm going to go to, in my core scripts, core, I'm going to right click and go to new file, thing, underscore reference.ts, and drop in those links. And then transpile. Remember to transpile. Okay, now that I've got all that going on, right, I should be golden. I should try and run this thing, right? And I want to upload it to GitHub. So now VS Code, notice how I have, this is my file structure in VS Code. For those people who are going to use VS Code, right? I have a search, I can search for stuff in VS Code. I have Git, and I can initialize my Git repository right here, if your Git is installed properly. If your Git's not installed properly, you won't see this option. You'll say, please install Git properly, all right? So click on Initialize Git Repository, and when I do that, it's going to ask me, it's going to show me all these changes. I'm going to kind of hover over changes and add plus. So I'm going to add all those things to the staging area. And I'm going to give this thing a message called initial commit. And click checkbox right here, or check mark. Notice how I can't push though, because I haven't configured my my remote. And the way I configure my remote in VS Code is I have to do it by command line. So I'm going to collapse everything here and open up my terminal. Here's my terminal, right? I need to have a repository somewhere. I need to have this repository made in GitHub. So I'm going to go back to GitHub, and I'm going to make a new repository in Centennial College. But it's going to be the same name as this with VS Code at the end, right? So let's do that. So new repository. Actually, let's go back. Let's grab this name to save time. New repository, same name, plus VS Code, right? And press enter. And what I get is this new URI, but I also get instructions on how to connect to Git, right? So on GitHub, it tells me I need to add this line, git remote add origin. Well, I might as well just copy it and go back into my terminal and paste it and press enter. So now I've created my connection to my remote. I've configured my remote. And I can simply just do something like this, git push -u origin master. And when I do that, it pushes everything up to Git. Always allow. So when I do that, if I go back up to my Git repository and refresh, I have all this. All right, so this is the version you want to use if you're using VS Code. If I went too fast for you, it's right here. You can download the VS Code version that works for me. If this doesn't work for you, you're misconfigured somewhere. It means you don't have npm working or Git, one of those two. Are you ready for the real fun? This is for the silver. Here's for the gold, right? Make Bower work, all right? In order for us to do our front-end technologies, to actually use Create.js and everything else, I use a dependency manager, a front-end dependency manager on the command line called Bower. And if you want to see where that is, it's Bower right here, package manager for the web. If you haven't heard about Bower before, and if it's new to you, that's a good thing. That means you're going to learn something new. The reason why I'm saying it's for the gold is if you don't have Git installed and you don't have npm installed, you can't get Bower, right? So you need those two are dependencies for this one. Okay, let's get Bower going, right? So how do I do that? Well, if you look down here, you have to install it through npm. npm install -g Bower. Do that. I'll wait for you guys to get it done. Some people also call it Bower. One day they'll have a little pronunciation on their website. It says, it's pronounced Bower, man, or Bower. I'm going to call it Bow Wow, Bower. Now this will fail if you don't have npm install or Git install properly. It'll fail. Say, sorry, your Git is misconfigured. It won't work. right? If npm is not working, it'll say, or it's not on the command line, npm install will fail, right? So you have to have both those two working. This is not dependent on TypeScript, so it'll work independently of that. It work?
No, I changed the TypeScript to latest.
And? Does it work? 1.7.5? Is it working though? How did you do it? What was your fix?
I changed the environmental variable and I deleted the TypeScript package from the installation. Installed it again by the command.
Excellent. All right, so that's your fix. So it is possible to fix it. Maybe you want to share that with your peers, right? If you send me a little email, I'd appreciate it, right? And then what I'll do is I'll share your email, give you some credit. I'll share your email with everybody else to say this is the way you fix it, right? All right, so here's npm install -g bower. Let's do that. And when I do that, I have bower installed now. I've already done that. So what we need to do with bower is we need to initialize my bower repository. But before I do that, before I do bower init, I want to go into VS Code again, and I want to set up another file. So I'm going to right-click here in VS Code and go New File, and we're going to call this bower rc, .bower rc. What bower rc is a bower configuration file, and I got to put these braces in here like this, and control space, and we're going to choose directory for bower. And normally bower gets all of its dependencies and puts them inside this thing called bower components like this. That's really ugly to me because that means you have to put everything, bower components / and everything else afterwards. It's too long. I want it to be in my folder structure, so I want it to say scripts lib. That's what I want it to say. So you can change that here. You can say scripts lib, and then bower will take all the components it downloads and puts it in there. Let's save that. I have to have that before I do a bower init. I go back to my command line here, right? And I'll show you what this does. Take a look at the folder structure for a second. If I go here and I go bower init, it's going to ask me, there's going to be a little wizard that comes up that says, hey, what's the name of your file, of your project? And this is fine. I'll accept that. My description, I'm just going to say enter, 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 and keep entering everything all the way until the bottom where I say enter. Right? Now, what it does, it generates a bower.json file that looks like this, that little wizard. So I said bower init, try this out, run through the wizard, press enter, enter, enter to accept everything, all the changes, and you get this file, this bower.json file. The bower.json file is your manifest for all your front-end dependencies. Okay, so anything that we're going to install, like create.js, 3JS for COMP397, when we build it next week, it'll be like this, by the way. We need to have this dependency installed, this bower init to do it, right? Okay, cool. So now that we've got our bower.json file, we can actually start our dependencies, right? Our stuff in here. So if I want to grab stuff like, for example, if I want to grab something like Jquery, right? If you're going to do front-end technologies like Jquery or Bootstrap or something like that, you can get Bower to get it for you, as opposed to you going out to Jquery, downloading Jquery, installing it, and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of work, right? So you can use Bower to get all that done for you. Let's try that out. Let's just do Jquery first. So I'll go Bower install Jquery -- save. And the -- save says, when you get Jquery, install it, attach it to your bower.json file as a dependency. Let's just enter that. So it goes out to the web, right? Grabs Jquery and installs it inside your scripts lib, where I told it to go, right? Now, this is for the gold. Remember I told you this? Sometimes what will happen is it'll fail. Bower will try and go out, even if you have Git installed properly, and it'll go, man, access denied. The reason for this is because there could be a firewall problem at times at the school, right? Where the firewall prevents Bower from going out and attaching to Git and getting stuff from GitHub, because this is where Bower gets everything. If there's a fix. If you look it up online, take that error that it gives you and populate it into Google, and then it'll give you the answer. There's a fix you have to make on your command line for your Git. Okay, that's for the gold. If you have a problem with that. Okay, so let's get Bootstrap too. Why not? So we'll say Bower install Bootstrap -- save. I'm not going to use Bootstrap in here, but I'm just getting it so I can show you. All right, take a look at what it does. In my scripts folder now, I have a lib folder that was created, and I have Bootstrap and jQuery. I put it right in place. And that's cool, right? That's way better than you downloading it, figuring out which version, dragging and dropping it, and putting it into your folder structure. It does it all for you, right? On the Visual Studio side, you use NuGet, right? NuGet Package Manager on the Visual Studio side does the exact same thing, right? So we needed something like this for us for Visual Studio Code, and that's what it does. But I've got like 99 plus changes in my up here. How come? Because I need a gitignore file, ladies and gentlemen. If I don't have a gitignore file with all these crazy files in here, that means every single file is going to be up online. I don't want that. So now we need a gitignore file. So let's add it in. So new file. We're going to call this gitignore. And this gitignore file should really tell us what files I want to ignore. Like, for example, I don't want to see anything inside the scripts lib folder because, you know what, I'm going to download them with Bower anyway. Now I only have 3 changes. Right? So my ignore file tells me what to ignore. On the Mac, you should also put in your ds_store, right? You should ignore those files too, right? Because Mac include the ds_store file occasionally when it uploads to Git, okay? If you're using Node, Node.js, you should also include something like node modules. So node modules should be definitely not included, right? You shouldn't upload node modules to the web because that's just like tons and tons of files for no reason, right? So that's your gitignore file, right? Your gitignore file will include stuff you want to ignore and not upload to Git, okay? So we've got that, and I've got a few changes. And if you notice here, it shows me that I have biorc, gitignore, and bower.json. I want to do if I want to do jQuery and I want to get code hinting for jQuery, that's another great reason to use TypeScript, right? But I can't get code hinting for any other external library unless I include type definition libraries, in which case I need a tsd.d.ts file, okay? It's just another extension for my library. And where do I get that? I get it from TSD, right? So if you go up online, like I showed you earlier, and if I search for TSD, I want to look at definitelytype.org/TSD, and it gives you this installation script with npm again, right? Everything is npm these days, right? Npm install tsd-g. And what this will do is we'll take the type definition library package manager and include it in your path, in your global path. Anything -g is, or -g is global in npm. So if you're doing emerging technologies, you're going to see a lot of this. npm install blah blah blah, npm install blah blah blah, npm install blah blah blah, right? You can do that a lot. Okay, cool. So I've added this in, and again, I would just in my path here, I'd go in here and type that in. I would say I would say npm install tsd-g, and then I would install that. Now I have tsd. So I want to get type definition libraries for jQuery and Bootstrap because that's what I downloaded, right? So I would do that. I would say tsd install, right, jQuery, and let's add Bootstrap too at the same time. Bootstrap --save in one line. So it goes out to the web, grabs type definition files. They're just library files that tell TypeScript. It gives TypeScript IntelliSense for jQuery and Bootstrap. And remember, jQuery has like 0 IntelliSense, right? You never get IntelliSense for jQuery, but now you do. So now that I've done that, and if I go back up here, notice that I have 7 files that have changed. I don't want my typings to be here either. So that's another file I want to ignore. Why? Because if I go here, it installed the typings folder in my folder structure that included Bootstrap and jQuery plus a dsd.d.ts file. That's bad, right? So what I want to do is include typings in my gitignore file. So I want to say anything in typings, I don't want to include that because that doesn't make any sense. I'll just do a tsd install next time when I download this file, and I'm good. And the tsd, what it does, it also includes a tsd.json file that keeps track of all your dependencies for your type definitions, right? Plus the latest version from GitHub. So it tells you the version number, right, which is good. Again, so we're using three package managers, right? npm, node package manager, Bower for your front-end dependencies, plus TSD for your TypeScript definition files. That's what they are. Those are the 3 you need. Remember I told you this for the gold? This is why. If I go into scripts, and if I go into core, and if I go into game.ts now, and if I want to use TypeScript, yeah, I have my reference path, but in my reference path, I also want to include this tsd.d.ts file right here. Because tsd.d.ts includes these two paths, right? So anything I install with tsd gets added in here. Anything I install manually myself gets added in here. So I want to include my tsd.d.ts up here, and I'm going to do it manually. So // reference path equals to, and I want to go out to where I'm going to get that, right? So I'm just going to go, because I'm in my core, I got to go up one to scripts, up another one, up to the root, down into typings, right? So it's going to go up one, up two, and then down into typings. And then tsd.d.ts. Okay, now no errors, we're good. So that I'm just adding this into my reference.ts path. Okay, cool. Now that I have that, when I go into my game.ts file, and if I want to look up, I want to get code hinting for jQuery, I'm almost ready, but I got to include jQuery in my index.html because any JavaScript library that I want to use, it's got to be my index.html, all right? Otherwise, it won't work. So up here, here's my JavaScript, and maybe I'll make another section for JavaScript libraries. And we'll call this game scripts. These are all my custom game scripts that I'm making. And these are all my libraries that I'm using. So here's my, almost there, guys and girls. Source. I want to get the gold, right? Scripts. And I want to go into lib. And then if I want to use jQuery, and I got to go down into jQuery, right? So let's keep typing. jQuery. And I got to go into dist and jQuery.min.js. jQuery.min.js. That's the path. Dist. Thank you. And now we're going to do the same thing for Bootstrap. Not that I need Bootstrap, but if I was going to include Bootstrap in my files, you know what? I want to include Bootstrap because I don't need it right now. I just want to show you jQuery because that's the most important thing. Because if I can do jQuery, I can do create.js the exact same way. All right. So here's jQuery, and how does it look? So if I go back to my game.ts, and if I try it up in here underneath my console log, right? And if I want to use some kind of onload thing, so I say, jQuery, and take a look what I get. I instantly get, the jQuery, code hinting. So I can say document, my selector, right, dot, and look what I get. Here's my ready, right? So I get all code hinting for jQuery. And that's another reason why we use TypeScript. So I can get code hinting for external libraries, which is what we're going to do when we use Create.js, 3.js, any JS we have out there. And they all exist online. Yes?
You have to add all this library whenever you create this project.
That's why we have boilerplates, right? That's why I'm going to give you a boilerplate that's ready to go. We're going to have a base to start from, and then we're going to go from there. Because why would I go and do this every single time, right? We only have to do it once. I want to show you how I build it, though, so you understand the back end of it. So you're not surprised if something's not working, and you know how to connect everything together. And besides, remember, this is a game course, but you're not all game students. I want you to take this away so you can use it in any large application, right? That's why I'm showing you this stuff, right? It's not. There's an underlying reason for me, right? I want you to take it away and do something with it. So document.ready is a jQuery thing, and I have access to all jQuery stuff, right? Remember, jQuery can target a selector, right? So I can say, well, what's my selector? I can target any selector string that I want, like for example, my body tag, right? I can try and look for that as an example. And then in my body tag, if I want to do that, sorry, let's go back there. I can also I can look at my text of body tag because, text, body does have text. So it's whatever I want, right? If that was what it was, right? I can also use any jQuery for any kind of events. But I'm not going to be using jQuery. This is just an example for you guys to understand how to attach an external library. Okay, so I have all these changes. These are all the ones I added in. My git ignore, my bower.json, my index.html. I changed my tsd.json, my reference.ts. All these things I changed. And I want to add them all in. So I'm going to click the plus here in VS Code. And then up here, I'm going to say added TSD support for jQuery, right? Something that makes sense. Click the checkbox, click in here because I've already configured my remote. I can do a push right here inside VS Code. So VS Code allows you to do that, which is really cool. And then it's going to go out to the web and push it up to GitHub. So now you have all my changes. So if you guys go up to the latest version that I just put up, which is this one, and if I refresh, it's going to say added TSD support for jQuery. And this is my latest version of our living document, this CreateJS boilerplate for jQuery. Next day, when we get together, we'll really put together a boilerplate for CreateJS. This is me getting your feet wet for TypeScript, for VS Code, for Visual Studio. If you're going to use Visual Studio, you can choose whatever you want, right? You can use Visual Studio if VS Code's too hard for you, okay? If you want to get the gold, though, and take it away and do mean stack, full stack, if you want to be a full stack developer, VS Code is the way to go, all right? If you use Visual Studio, it's good, but the problem with Visual Studio is no one uses it in the industry when it comes to mean stack development. Not really, right? You use open source tools like VS Code and Brackets and Atom and other kinds of tools like that. So I'm giving it to you as a recommendation, but here in this course, if you want to be successful, all I care about is your game working and your code that's clean, right? So it depends on what you want to do. You want to do Visual Studio? I'm good with that. You want to do VS Code? I'm good with that too. I'm going to intercut between the two. I'm going to say, hey, here's a VS Code example, and then I'll do the Visual Studio code example, right? So you have both, and you've seen it twice, right? Which is it's going to be the same code, right? It's just you're going to see it twice in both systems. That's what's going to happen over this next semester. Okay, remember next week, you get assignment number 1. That's coming up next week, right? You get, by the end of today, I'm going to put up a little, don't go away yet. You're going to put a little Dropbox, right, that you're going to have to do. Set up your GitHub account in Dropbox. It's going to be a little thing. I'm going to make it due Monday because today's kind of the end of the day, right? Give me your GitHub account name and any repository you want in a text file in Dropbox, okay? That's what you need. This is the lab that's due Monday. I'm going to put it together right now, right? And when we meet on next Friday, remember the first 5 minutes is going to be a little quiz, 5 to 10 questions, and the stuff we talked about today. So please review the videos if you can't remember everything, and practice, 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 because all this stuff is practice. Now, you're lucky if you've got COMP397 because you're going to practice to hell there and practice to hell here in that course. You'll do it both twice, and you'll be a superstar, okay? Guys, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for coming. I really love the fact that you're all here today, and I appreciate it. I'll be right with you.